Okay. It's 8:50 a.m. West Coast time on Friday, June 27th. Happy Pride weekend. Hope everybody has a fun and safe weekend. So the Supreme Court's ruling that involved a question of nationwide injunctions, which tangentially involved an executive order on Donald Trump's executive order on birthright citizenship. The court did not address the question of that executive order or of doing away with birthright citizenship. That decision's been out for a couple hours. We're getting some reaction, some of which I agree with, some of which I don't agree with. But I want you to look at it from this perspective. During the Biden administration, and I spoke about this guy in my earlier video, federal district court judge Matthew Kacsmaryk, I think he's in Amarillo, Texas. He's the only district judge in that district. He was appointed by Donald Trump, is a white Christian nationalist who basically believes that, all judicial questions should be decided through a lens of 2025 straight white male patriarchal evangelical Republican Jesus Christianity. During the Biden administration, that federal judge in a remote part of Texas issued a nationwide injunction against the abortion medication mifepristone, and it's used for multiple other things besides abortion. He issued a nationwide injunction against the distribution, the sale of that drug. If the Biden administration had sued at that time on this question of nationwide injunctions, and if they had won at the Supreme Court, everybody on the left would be celebrating that decision. But that didn't happen. Nationwide injunctions is something that both sides have abused in recent times. There is a long history of district courts, trial court level federal courts, issuing nationwide injunctions in certain circumstances. That is true. It is also true that in recent years, both sides have abused this process, and both sides have engaged in forum shopping in this process. What do I mean by forum shopping? During the Biden administration, everybody on the right went to that courthouse in Amarillo, Texas, because they knew that guy was on their side. During Donald Trump's first term, everybody on the left went to district courts in San Francisco because they knew that those judges were probably going to be on their side and give them their nationwide injunctions. So it's true that there's a long history of this stuff. It is simultaneously true that both sides have abused this process in recent years. All of that is correct. I personally do believe that this was an issue that needed to be addressed. I'm going to read the opinion. I'm going to read the dissent that was written by Sotomayor and signed on to by Justices Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson. I will read those when I have time. But as I said, we're starting to get some reaction to this. New York University law professor Melissa Murray, who I love, incredibly smart, very good analyst. She was on MSNBC. This is all happening in an environment where the Trump administration is not only going after undocumented persons and deporting them without the benefit of due process. Absolutely correct. They are doing so while they are also upending the legal landscape by making it harder for pro bono outfits, like not-for-profits, to secure the help they need from law firms to bring these suits. That is true. And now, with this decision, they're essentially saying that litigants will have to file in each particular jurisdiction around the United States in order to be clear that their resolution will have a legally binding effect. I think that's accurate. I think that's an accurate reading of this decision. And what that means is you're going to need a flood, an army of lawyers at a time when that army of lawyers is not going to be forthcoming. That is something we're going to need to address. Friday's ruling stated that injunctions issued challenging Trump's attempts to limit birthright citizenship, a constitutional law that states anybody born in the U.S. as a citizen, would only affect individuals or groups involved in that specific legal action, meaning in that specific jurisdiction. Melissa Murray continued. So make no mistake about this. The court has given this administration an enormous win. They have put one hand behind the backs of those who are trying to fight against this administration. This ruling does not solely benefit this administration. They have dealt a death blow to the rule of law. I feel like that is an overstatement. Now, we have a response from Fat Nixon Pervert Hoover, Mango Mussolini. Giant win, all caps, in the United States Supreme Court. Even the birthright citizenship hoax has been indirectly hit hard. I don't have the slightest idea what that means. The birthright citizenship hoax. It had to do with the babies of slaves, same year, exclamation point, not the scamming of our immigration process. So he's also 100% wrong. That is absolutely not what the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship says. That's not what it says. And there's like 120 years worth of United States Supreme Court precedent saying that birthright citizenship does not only apply to the babies of slaves. Jesus Christ, man. These people are insane. The Supreme Court has set off alarm bells that it is in the bag for Trump, says one analyst. Let's see. Another University of Michigan law professor, Leah Litman, who I also absolutely adore. She was on MSNBC this morning. I think that it's part of what makes the court decision to take this particular case so troubling. She said the Biden administration was subject to a raft of nationwide universal injunctions for 4 years. Exactly. That's the point that I've been making. They asked the Supreme Court to take up the propriety of nationwide injunctions in cases that were probably less appropriate for nationwide injunctions, like a challenge to particular rules for forgiving some student loan debt when you enroll in a university that is the subject of fraud. And she said, she's making the point that before the Trump administration, the Supreme Court wasn't really willing to address this issue of nationwide injunctions when Joe Biden was president. She said, so I have real doubts about whether Republican justices on the court are going to apply the same rule to Democratic administrations, or whether they instead are going to say something to the effect of, well, when a Republican-led state is challenging a policy of a Democratic president, we just so happen to conclude in those cases, nationwide injunctions are necessary to provide those states with relief. Then she put down the hammer. I think the fact that this court has been so complicit in putting Donald Trump in particular above the law and basically eliminating ways to enforce the Constitution and federal law against him should raise serious alarm bells about whether this court is kind of in the bag for Donald Trump and the Trump administration. And I think that that is becoming more clear with each passing day. I think that this court is going to bend over backwards to allow Donald Trump to do whatever the hell Donald Trump wants to do. And they're just going to couch it in these very high-minded, constitutional terms and make it seem like they're being fair and even-handed. When in fact, just like Donald Trump, the conservative majority of the United States Supreme Court wants a white supremacist, male-dominated patriarchy United States. Not that that's ever gone away, but they want to turbocharge it, man. They want an all-white United States. And this is part of how they're going to do it.